Mama's in the living room watching Judge Judy. I'm in the kitchen eating leftover sushi, and she yells, "Oh, girl, you gotta hear this one." A man was arrested for running the theme park, and when they said, "Where's your license?" he said, "My dog ate it." Oh, you can't make this shit up. Sometimes I wonder if life's just one big cosmic joke. It's like she's on a Reddit, reading r/funny lawsuits, yelling from the couch. As she sips on a prosecco, makes fun of all the weirdos, and then I hear a shout. It's like she's on a Reddit, reading r/funny lawsuits, yelling from the couch. As she sips on a prosecco, makes fun of all the weirdos, and then I hear a shout. Girl, you gotta hear this one. Mama loves to laugh at how absurd life is, says it's all a comedy and I'm her audience. And I love the way she makes fun of the world. She said, "You'll never guess who's with their girlfriend. It was a man who didn't get inside of the bed. He said, I've been through hell and now I need some help. You just can't make this shit up. You just can't make this shit up." Sometimes I wonder if life's just one big cosmic joke.
Stop. No. Right
It's
there.
like she's
Use your pad.
on Reddit, reading
Use your pad. It's right there.
lawsuits, yelling from the couch. As she sips on a prosecco, makes fun of all the weirdos, and then I hear her shout. It's like she's on a Reddit, reading r/funny lawsuits, yelling from the couch. As she sips on a prosecco, makes fun of all the weirdos, and then I hear her shout. Girl, you gotta hear this one.
And apparently Restream is being weird. I don't know what's going on. I have absolutely no clue what's going on. However, here we find ourselves today. And we have an interesting one today. And when I say interesting, I mean it's going to be a hot topic. This one is going to make people talk. Some people are going to hate me for it. Some people are going to love my opinion. And truthfully, I don't know where I fall on this. So, should the fact that a child survived a PDF file incident, we'll just put it that way, be the thing that prevents the offender from receiving the death penalty? Here's where we start. So this is an uncomfortable question, and this will be an uncomfortable stream, trigger warning. However, if an adult is convicted of repeatedly smexy time assaulting, and I'm looking at a bug in the corner of my room, and it's going to drive me nuts for the entire hour we are doing this. So let me start over. An uncomfortable question that we need to discuss. If a adult is convicted of repeatedly PDF filing a child under the age of 12, should the fact that the child survived the attack automatically remove the death penalty from the table? Ergo, my stream is probably going to get demonetized. So usually I don't do this, but if y'all would love to send them super chats, today would be it. Because right now, existing Supreme Court says that's against the 8th Amendment. It doesn't matter how young the child was. It doesn't matter how long the abuse went on. It doesn't matter how many separate different offenses were committed. if the victim is not unalived, the defendant did not intend for the victim to unalive. The U.S. Supreme Court says that unaliving them as punishment is disproportionate. And I'm trying to use YouTube-friendly words, so if I'm talking just a little bit more carefully than normal, it's because I really don't want to get yeeted off of YouTube for this. But this is a really interesting and hot topic right now. And Florida is trying to make it a real thing. Florida has passed a law essentially saying, we think the Supreme Court got that wrong. And I know on this channel and a few others, we joke about the wood chipper and we joke about these punishments for people and what we think these punishments should be. But when it comes down to it, where does that line actually fall? So today we're discussing, and I'm going to butcher his name, but at the same time, with what he's accused of, butchering his name is the least of his problems. But Schubert Macarat case is going to, in my opinion, force the courts to reconsider. And they might have selected this case as their test case. So today we aren't discussing whether one defendant is deserving of the unaliving penalty. We are discussing whether the government should have the constitutional power to unalive someone for a crime in which no one was unalived. This is the ethical question, and those aren't necessarily the same question. So before I explain what I understand the law to be and what I've been explained the law to be, where do y'all stand on this? Because the death penalty is controversial for adults in general when someone is unalived. You killed this person, we're going to kill you back. Should the state have that much power? And as someone very smart brought up to me today, where does the line get drawn? Does this open the floodgates? So before we get started with that, just a couple housekeeping things. If you haven't subscribed to my other channel, Evidence Through Motion, please do that. I have not been able to upload anything over there in the last couple of days. And this will be a shorter stream than normal. I have not been able to record because life 3D world has been hectic. It is the little's birthday week. So between trying to plan her party for this weekend and the fact that she is starting school a week after her birthday, get everything that she needs for school and figure out what I'm doing for her school. The schedule will be changing on this channel. There will be no 2:15, 2:30 lives anymore because of the fact that her school day ends at the same time that I start streaming. I'm not sure what the changes are going to be right now. When I figure it out, I will make a community post and kind of let you guys know. We might try a few different things to see what works. I'm not exactly sure where I fall. So we kind of have to figure out how our school day works and what my school and work schedule looks like before we figure out how this channel is going to proceed forward. Secondly, I promised you guys a video on ETM. I have not been able to record it due to said 3D world life things. I did not even get to prepare as much as I wanted to for this stream because I have lots of documents, lots of case law, Supreme Court opinions, and I have not been able to read through everything that I wanted to do to prepare for this stream either. Also, if I look uncomfortable, it's because I am. Not only is this an uncomfortable topic, but I believe one that truly needs to be talked about. Also, I am dealing with a very, 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 very bad heat rash right now. So I am very uncomfortable. And when I say I'm very uncomfortable, I am more uncomfortable right now than I have been in a long time. So I am we're just not comfortable right now. So, you know, and before we actually start talking about the topic, I do have Unhung Hero. It didn't come up in Restream because Restream's being Restream. But Ninja Unhung Hero, thank you for the 20 gifted memberships, I think. I appreciate that so very much. Also, Ninja Puppy, thanks for being a member for 13 months. Super chat on the way. And Ninja Puppy, thanks for your $4.99 super chat. I have mixed feelings on this topic. It's somewhere in between kill 'em all, let God sort 'em out, then wondering about innocent but proven guilty. Yeah, it's yeah, I'm kind of torn on where I feel about it too. It's all fun and games to joke about Lord Chippy until it's a real case. However, there is just a certain extra bit of like, you want to go F somebody with a sandpaper condom right up the old backside, with a crime against someone who is an innocent child, because now you've taken away their innocence for their entire life. It's one of those situations where it is but I think that this case is one that should be making national headlines, for multitude of reasons. But one of the things that I think is happening here is this is going to challenge the Supreme Court. I'm convinced that the Supreme Court may not want to hear it, but they might have no choice. It's all right. So the defendant here, we're not going to get too much into him because at this point he is a waste of oxygen if even a smidgen of what is alleged here is true. However, Schubert Macarat is 41. He has pled not guilty. Grand jury returned a 47-count indictment. The indictment reportedly includes 12 counts of smexy time battery upon a child under 12. Other charges reportedly involve familiar or custodial authority, child SAM. If you know what that is, you know what that is. If you don't know what that is, for the sake of my channel, I am not describing it. You can Google it. So prosecutors alleged prolonged abuse and say the child recorded evidence. So those allegations alone might explain why Florida wants the death penalty in this particular case. Because when we are going to look at some stuff, but they don't establish a guilt and it doesn't resolve the constitutional question. But if you're going to bring a case to, like I said, not a lawyer, never claimed to be a lawyer. However, if I was going to pretend and play a mock trial one day, and I were going to try to persuade people and to interpret the law in my favor, one way I would want to do it is to bring a case that is horrendous, so it makes my side look like we're doing the Lord's work. I'm just saying, I'd want to be as convincing as possible with a case that is as clear cut as possible with no wishy-washy evidence. No, I'd want as constitutionally I can't think of the right word for it right now, but I'd want as cut and dry of a case with as horrible as allegations as I could find to bring all the way up to the Supreme Court to be like, you made this argument, but look at this case. Is this the kind of case that, and I don't particularly like you, and I'm pretty sure you don't particularly like me, and that's okay. However, I agree with you here. I agree with you here. It's yeah, I agree with you here. Squid, what is that weird thing on your finger? So, funny story. Somebody sent me some organizational stuff for my pantry, and I was cleaning out my pantry on Sunday morning, which is why I didn't get the chance to get a lot of computer work done, is because I went into purge mode. I got rid of stuff. I went through my entire filing cabinet. That's a whole another can of worms there. The spider that was living behind my desk, that's another can of worms there. However, in cleaning out my pantry, I have a 3-drawer, just a Walmart plastic container in my pantry to help organize things that aren't used very much, like my piping baking supplies when I make the cookie royal icing, and paper plates and stuff that we barely ever use. And I opened up the bottom drawer of that, and lo and behold, what was staring back up at me but my ring that has been missing since July of 2025. So, yes, that has relieved a lot of pressure off of my brain. Oops, sorry. Okay. This right here. And the Athena Strand case is right up there with being worthy of SCOTUS case for challenging if death penalty is allowed. Yeah. But the thing about that is he actually unalived her, that horrible ass person, and he admitted to it. And it was caught on camera. If you're good, just, thank God it wasn't in the drawer under the stove. I will never live that down. You want my phone?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. And the thing is I had been in that drawer probably as recently as like the end of last month.
Right.
And never,
This one?
hold on, let Mama do it.
Okay.
There you go. So, either way, it's found. Hey, Samantha, shoe lover. Yeah. So this is going to be probably a multi-part case considering, or stream considering I can't cover this all today. I don't have the time. My pain level is not cooperating with sitting still. Also, it's a very delicate case, and I want to make sure that we do recognize that he is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. However, that doesn't mean we have to like him. So, I can think of a lot of ways. Cutting off the shortest appendage, or cutting off all appendages, starting with the absolute shortest with a butter knife. That's the YouTube appropriate version. I have more. Not like I've thought about this or anything. Oh, and if any of y'all ever thought that my child was going to be bullied in school because she is so tiny for her age, she has a Nerf pew pew she decided to name our couches Suni and Miha. I don't know where she came up with those names. However, she decided to repeatedly try to pew our couches and then go Suni dead, Miha dead, Suni dead, Miha dead, and be way too happy about it.
Dad.
So
he died.
what?
Miha died.
Yeah. So if anybody ever thinks that my child is going to be picked on, or if they try to break into my house, y'all,
Stop.
my child enjoys destroying things, naming them people, and laughing about it. Yeah. All right.
It's a hollow. It's a hollow in the house.
Yeah.
It's a
All
hollow
right.
in the house.
Okay, you gotta get down.
No,
You
Mama.
gotta get down, baby. You gotta get down. It's okay. You're not in trouble. You just gotta get down.
I want to call Daddy.
No.
Please.
Okay.
I want to call Daddy. I want to call
Oh, y'all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, before we get into the actual court documents, we're going to get into what the statutes that they are trying to use in this situation are. So, let's see. 794 Florida statute 794.0112A.
Daddy's back.
Okay. And and thank you for the 6-7 Jules, because somebody likes them. Like I said, I know what I wanted to talk about with you guys, but I did not have the time to. Yes, I see, baby. This is where you know, God love her. And I had these on my other computer, but you know, so what you're saying is that soon when someone like I'm not saying a damn thing. However, I don't understand how my child learned to name something. After, I don't know where she got those names either. Shoot them, say they are dead, and then laugh about it. She really is my child. That's all I will.
Mommy, I want to watch you.
Okay, go get one.
Mommy, help me watch you.
So, oof. Yeah, she caught it. She caught it. All right. So, and this is not going to be easy to share with you guys because it is so small. However, I will do my best. Oop, wrong show.
I want you done.
Girl, if it was a snake, it would have bit you. I said she could have something, and I told her to go get it. And it's in the pantry. It's within her reach. She's just not looking for it. Ugh. product of her environment. Good job. I'm not so sure about that one. All right. Whee. I really, really wish that they would make this a little more user-friendly. There we go. Mama duties. Thank you for your patience with me. Lord, have mercy on my patience today, because I have none. Oh, all right. Y'all, we are going to get into what this Florida statute is. And they are using 794.0112A. So 794.011 is smexy time battery. And if you have a problem with me going and taking care of my daughter first and the chat second, or replay crew second, please address your complaints to the focus group, because, well, you suck. All right. So 2A is a person 18 years old of age or older who commits, and I'm going to be kind of, gracefully tiptoeing around these things, trying to go ballerina style, upon or an attempt to commit injuries to the reproductive system of a person less than 12 years of age, commits a capital felony punishable as provided in 775 921.1425, which is another thing they're going to do. In all capital cases under this section, the procedure set forth shall be followed in order to determine a sentence of death or life imprisonment. If the prosecutor intends to seek the death penalty, the prosecutor must give notice to the defendant and file notice of the court within 45 days after arraignment. The notice must contain a list of aggravating factors the state intends to prove and has reason to believe it can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. The court may allow the prosecutor to amend the notice upon a showing of good cause. Yep. Yeah. Dancing squid, tentacles everywhere. So yeah, we got some thoughts. This is one of those situations where I'm torn, because at the same time, I want justice for these kids who are never going to be the same again. However, arguing the other side, our justice system sucks in prosecuting the wrong people. And that is not to say that this person is innocent. That's not to say that this person is guilty. However, I have seen enough things to realize that our justice system has major flaws. And I think we need to fix those major flaws before we start doing this. I don't know. It really, it's a slippery slope, and I don't exactly know how I feel. It's a yeah. It's a very slippery slope. So this is this is the 1425 sentence of death or life imprisonment for capital smexy time, battery, or further proceedings to determine sentence. So it's the legislature finds that a person who commits battery upon an attempt to commit. This is where I have a problem with the language, or an attempt to. That's objective or subjective. That's a subjective. And I've seen enough corrupt cops to make something that is, to make a mountain out of a molehill. So, or an attempt to is a subjective thing. And having a subjective, having a subjective wording in a statute that is designed to decide whether life imprisonment or unaliving someone by the state, y'all, I'm not sure how I feel. I'm just not sure how I feel. This is where I want y'all's opinions. So if you are on Replay Crew, please let me know what you guys think, because I can see both sides of the issue, but this word, attempt, is where I have the problem. Because that's a subjective argument. And I just well, here, I repeat, people should be tried as if they succeeded the crime they attempted, not let off because they failed. Yeah, being a bad criminal. And I see that, but Jeffrey, think about this, and I am not a lawyer. So I repeat that. I am not a lawyer. But think about what we know about lawyers and how they argue things. They argue down to the letter. And if you were arguing down to the letter, this is one of the letters that I would use. And if any of y'all, like, I was on a stream with Ghazni last week, but if any of y'all can know how to get in touch with Ghazni, because I don't, and you can ask him for his opinion, or ask him if he wants to get a hold of me and collaborate on this, because as someone who is against the death penalty for moral reasons, I would really like his opinion on this. And thank you, Unhung Hero, for the $2 super chat. Yes, that does seem rather vague for wanting the death penalty. And that's my point. It's like, that's a vague, that the wording of that is just not, I don't know. But they bring up Kennedy v. Louisiana, and I actually have Kennedy v. Louisiana right here. So those were the two statutes that they were using. We are going to stop sharing that, and we are going to share this instead. And why does it always want to put me on the opposite side of the document? Yeah, I thought they said the worst of the worst, and then they make it sound like it could be anyone. Yeah. And Jeffrey, I see your point. I do see your point, and I do understand your point, and I do halfway agree with your point. But looking at the larger picture, so if someone tries to carjack and the person stopped as an off-duty police officer, should they just get a few months as opposed to for failing, as opposed to several years if they succeeded? I understand where you're coming from. I really do. I just think that is a different argument than that one. I just think that is a different argument. Like, I just think that's like attempted unaliving versus unaliving. I think that's a different argument than the death penalty being used as in a crime where something was attempted. I see your point. I just think when you're talking about taking someone's life, it's a different argument. Jeffrey, I see your point. I really do. But you're putting the cart before the horse and trying to make two different arguments for the same thing that aren't comparable. That aren't comparable. So, long story short, this is 64 pages, and we are not going to get into all of it. And I didn't get the chance to read all of it, therefore we are not going to. However, they tried to use a case, Coker v. Georgia, I think was the it's the Eighth Amendment. It's applying this principle. The court held in Roper and Atkins that the execution of juveniles and the mentally, and I'm using this word because this is actually before it became a slur. It's an actual diagnosis. Retarded means slow. Retarded had an actual medical diagnosis. It's to retard something, to slow down the progression of. I have worked with people in community settings whose diagnosis was MR. That was what was in their chart. MR. So it was prior to 2014 was a legit medical diagnosis before it became a slur and we had to fix all the words. So if it is in here, even though you might be a person who does not like the word, So applying that execution of juveniles and the mentally retarded violates the Eighth Amendment because the offender has diminished personal responsibility for crime. The court also found the death penalty disproportionate to the crime itself, where the victim did not result or was not intended to result in the victim's death. Long story short, crimes where the victim did not die, or crimes against the state are unconstitutional. The only time where the death penalty is applicable without someone actually passing away is crimes against the state, which would be treason. So,
Pass it this.
attempted red rum won't get you the DP.
Mommy, pass it this.
Yes, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a long it's just a long thing, but basically they said if the victim does not get unalived, you can't unalive them back. That's a disproportionate crime. Insert Florida and 4 other states. I can't remember all of them, but I want to. Angel, stop. I'm gonna put you down. I want to say that Oklahoma, Louisiana, Those are the only two that I can think of. Don't quote me, though, because I don't remember. Well, it should be applicable for certain crimes against children 1,000%.
Mommy, pass it this.
And I think...
Mommy, pass it this.
No, stop. And I think that is going to be the central issue in where we go from here. I don't know where this will go. But what's his face was in here earlier. Luthman was in here earlier and said that and take that with a grain of salt. You don't have to like him. You don't have to like him being in here, but he was suck it up, Buttercup. However, he said that in his opinion, DeSantis was going to fight it tooth and nail. Don't quote me, that wasn't his exact quote, but he was going to take it up as high as he could. So I see this going and going and going until the Supreme Court has no choice. Will this be the Roe v. Wade of the new era? The next big talking point for everybody and the big contention. So this is a very touchy subject, and it seems like Florida is openly challenging the Supreme Court to say, hey, you're wrong. Look at this. So, and the Florida legislature, with their wording, did not attempt to hide the conflict. That 1425 that we read expressly states it believes that Kennedy v. Louisiana was wrong. So if we go back to this, so the legislature further finds that Buford v. State of Florida 1981 was wrongly decided, that Kennedy v. Louisiana, the case we just talked about, was wrongly decided and an egregious infringement on the state's power to punish the most heinous of crimes. It is the intent of the legislature that set forth in this section shall be followed. A prosecutor must file notice as provided in that statute we read before. So, yeah, it's doubt that the Epstein crowd will permit this to pass. And I feel like the Epstein crowd is where this stuff started coming from, because the people wanted the legislatures to actually do something, and the legislature said, here you go. Here's another thing that I was kind of thinking, and I don't know what this thought came to my head. So this thought came to... Stop.
No.
I'm put you down. This thought came to my head, and I don't know how to think about it or what to think about it. These 5 states, Florida being included, know that there was Kennedy v. Louisiana from 2008. Know that the general public was outraged and wanting answers for child trafficking, child issues against children. I'm wondering if those sneaky, slimy, underhanded bastards that we call politicians enacted these laws to make their constituents happy, however, knowing full well that they weren't actually going to go anywhere or do anything because the Supreme Court was standing in their way. I don't know how. Well, interestingly enough, in that Supreme Court decision, Roberts wrote the decision, Alito wrote the dissent. So Yeah. When I say Epstein crowd, I mean those currently being prosecuted due to their positions and wealth. I get that, but some of those people are politicians. I'm convinced. And not just federal politicians, but state politicians as well. So I'm wondering if these states pretty much will make you happy while knowing that shit's not actually going to happen to us because the Supreme Court will never overturn Kennedy v. Louisiana. I don't know how I feel about that. That thought popped into my head, and I was, when you have those internal struggles of you're like, I can't believe I just thought that, and I really hope that's not true, but I would not be shocked if it is. That's kind of my brain right now, reading through all this stuff. And as the mother of a very adorable daughter, I have thoughts that are arguing with my morals. Which is why I feel like I need someone like Ghazni to like sort me out, Of course they're politicians. Politicians are funded by them, sort of like Clarence Thomas's deal with the vacations as SUV, etc. Yeah, yeah, that's another common sense on the laws being written, but them knowing the Supreme Court won't do anything. It's another long time thing. It's yeah. For the record, I'm on Ghazni's side. I'm not for the criminal. I'm for the morality of it. And I don't think there's necessarily a side, because at the end of the day, we all want people to be held accountable for their actions. But the idea is how. Good point. Morals and ethics can be two different things too. Yes. So I don't think that Florida did this on accident. Let's just put it this way. I don't think that Florida, by what they used, the terminology they used in this. Oh, I forgot that I can, unlike StreamYard, Restream will let me zoom in. So the fact that they use wrongly decided and Kennedy v. Louisiana was wrongly decided, I don't think that they wrote this. I think that was obviously intentional, and they knew that the first case they ever brought was going to be a Supreme Court fight. I just, and Unhung Hero, thanks for the $5 super chat. I hope this isn't, but wouldn't be shocked if it is. Fertility doctors just want your money like a car dealer. They don't care about fixing problems. I would like to think better of fertility doctors, but knowing the situation, I would like to think better of people. But my cynical side is like, me, Hey, Slidey Pie. Thank you. Appreciate that. SteveGosney.com. Yeah, SteveGosney.com. Whee! Yeah, woohoo, Zoom. I know, right? I completely forget about some of the things that I'm able to do.
Mommy,
that one I didn't understand. Not even toddler can sort that one out. And thanks for everybody watching on Rumble. I appreciate you guys over there. I'm still getting used to that whole Rumble thing. Yeah. All right. So, Eighth Amendment. Breaking down, we've mentioned the Eighth Amendment. But what does the Eighth Amendment actually say? Because it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to actually read the words of the Eighth Amendment to understand fully what we are trying to grasp. And my computer has decided to not work. There we go. So from constitution.congress.gov, the Eighth Amendment, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. What is cruel and unusual punishment? There's another thing that can be argued, in my opinion, because what is cruel and unusual punishment? And I say this only because does the crime that you committed, well, that's cruel and unusual. So if you're willing to commit and this is where my attitude gets the best of me, if you're willing to commit a cruel and unusual punishment towards somebody under the age of 12, then cruel and unusual, like my parents made me, well, my mom and my stepdad made me pick my own switch when I was a kid. That's cruel and unusual punishment if you want to spin it a certain way. I mean, well, yes, that's true. But what is cruel and unusual? How is that interpreted? If you want to use if you want to use the arguments that people use against the Second Amendment, we had a lot less ideas of what to do with people back when this document was written. I agree. It only outlaws cruel and unusual, not cruel or unusual. I mean, and is unaliving someone for hurting a child excessively cruel? I don't know. I had to pick my own punishment. If I was too lenient on myself, my parents would decide, and I didn't want that. Yes. It's as the joke writes itself, I think it was Jeff Foxworthy or Bill Engvall who said it. If you picked one that was too thin, they were going to send you right back out there to pick another one. If you picked one that was too big, say goodbye to your spleen. However, the whole time that you were out there picking one, they are inside laughing their asses off at you. That is cruel and unusual. It is reasonably cruel and not unusual. Unusual can be forcing a slumlord to have to stand on the street corner proclaiming themselves as slumlords or live in the slums themselves now. And this is where interpretation is based on your own experiences, your morals, your ethics, and not necessarily what you read in a book. This is where founding fathers be damned. Because cruel and unusual, also excessive bail to a poor person could be $1,000. Excessive bail to a rich person, $1,000 ain't shit. It's all about perspective. And that's where this conversation is yet again very nuanced. I don't think I have all the right answers. I don't know all the right answers. This is just a very interesting discussion. Because this isn't a debate on whether the death penalty is always constitutional. The Supreme Court's already decided that. The dispute is whether it can extend to a crime against an individual that did not result in a death. So I did Google and Kennedy v. Louisiana and get the Google whatever that is, whatever AI they're using as a whatever AI they're using for Google. Let's see. An AI summary of the Kennedy versus Louisiana. So the basic background without having to read 64 pages. Patrick Kennedy was convicted of graping his 8-year-old stepdaughter. Louisiana authorized his unaliving for the grape of a child under 12. He was sentenced to death. The Supreme Court considered that punishment violated the 8th Amendment. The court ruled 5-4 that it did. So it's
Mama, it should no.
I know.
It says no.
Yeah, that is true.
No.
If you believe the
Mommy, it says no.
vehement Second Amendment, people, the
Mommy,
founding
it
fathers
says
would be
no,
okay
no,
with
no.
citizens having nuclear weapons in order to protect against government.
Mommy, it says no. It says no.
He did say no. I do. And don't get me wrong, I love me my Second Amendment, but you know, I believe in limits. All right. So it ruled the death penalty is unconstitutional for crimes against an individual when the victim did not die and death was not intended. The majority said that death is qualitatively different from every other punishment. That is a good point. Punishment must be proportionate to the offenses. At the time, very few states authorized death for the child crimes. She can read some words. It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. I'm not gonna lie, most of her reading comes from Daddy, text me. Okay, let's read what he said.
Touch you.
Yeah. Not our fault. They didn't give it the weight it was worth. It's true.
No.
Yeah, reasonable limits are
Yes.
hugely debated. Yes.
Yes.
And this is my point. This is where I go back and forth because yes, the physical body did not die. But for lack of a better way, and I brought this up with Snipe Hunter and T3 earlier today. And if you haven't checked out Snipe Hunter's stream from earlier today, he was doing some painting and T3 was joining him and I joined for a little bit. However, I brought it up to her because I wanted to hear her opinion because I knew she had a strong opinion. She brought up a really good point, and I'm not quoting her exactly, but it kind of goes along with where Haley's kind of going. Destroying a child's life is surely equal to the death penalty. I believe you killed that child's innocence. You believe you killed that child's spirit, and that child will never be the same person. So you killed who that child was. You killed who that child was going to be. So, in essence, although you didn't kill the physical body.
Mommy, it's cute.
Yeah, but it looks really bad on my skin. Yes.
I want rat.
There you go. Leave it alone.
I want rat.
So, although you didn't unalive the physical body.
I want rat.
No. You killed who that child was and was going to be.
No.
And are those, is that worth killing over?
Nope.
It's a,
It's purple.
Yes, it is.
Yay, it's a mommy.
I'm still awaiting a reasonable definition of differences between hunting rifles and assault rifles that are legal definitions, especially after the Supreme Court's ruling
Mommy,
about bump
what is
stocks.
that?
It's
Mommy, what is that?
nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or
Mommy,
property
what
without
is
due
that?
process. Hold on.
What is
Of
that?
law, in my opinion, this means death
No,
penalty is
no,
okay as
no,
long as
no.
rules are followed.
Oh, red? Yes. What
It's
is
a,
it?
you know,
What is it? Oh, just
I get it. And this is where it's like, I don't have the right answer. I don't know what the right answer is. It's one of those situations where I don't know.
Just like
And everything's open for debate because I don't know. It is really good for society when people who are proven to have committed these crimes against children are met with the harshest possible punishment the state can give. It's perfectly proportional. I do think what it will do is put the fear of God into people and actually make people afraid of consequences. Because let's be honest, people are not afraid of going to prison. They're not. Like, if people were afraid of going to prison, less people would commit crimes. Nobody is afraid of the weak-ass consequences this country has and our cushy-ass prisons that give you 3 hots and a cot and a roof over your head.
It's cautious. Mommy, it's just cautious.
There may not be a right answer. Yeah. And that's an interesting moral and ethical. This is where it's like crosses the line from not even just a legal issue, but just a layperson's issue. So, and it's just hey, SMN, good to see you. It's so both sides have points and have valid points. But if death is reserved for cases in which a victim dies, are we measuring only the outcome, or are there acts that are so deliberately destructive that the defendant's conduct should matter just as much, if not more, than the outcome of the crime? So we have a couple of arguments that I was thinking about in my discussions with people. I wrote stuff down because every time someone would bring up a point that I would write it down. So for Florida's argument, the crime can permanently, and just like I mentioned a little while ago, the crime can permanently alter every aspect of a child's life. Repeated offenses may be more culpable than a single incident.
Stop.
So if this happens one time versus if this is repeated, prolonged PDFing over multiple years, states should be able to reserve unalivings for the most aggravated cases.
It's Bill.
Kennedy, the Supreme Court decision was a narrow step. I'm gonna put you down. Sorry. Speaking of consequences to actions, I tell her to stop doing something and she doesn't. I put her down. She gets mad. You know? And then she cries. So, you are fine. You are mad at me.
Stop.
No.
Stop.
Yeah, well, her just biting my arm is cruel and unusual too. So, It's and these are just arguments that were brainstormed when discussing this topic with multiple people. And not anybody who actually knew of, not really anybody who actually knew this case. I discussed this with my mom last night when I was working with her on what she thought, and just kind of wrote down some of her thoughts when I got home. Same with a couple of my other coworkers from last night. One being 19 years old, septum theory engaged, green hair. If you know the type, you know the type. And then a couple of people on the internet who when I told them I was discussing this topic, kind of wanted or gave me their ideas too. You're fine. You're fine. Yep. Now she's mad. So now she's going to go through a temper tantrum. She's fine. She's just mad I set her down. Actions have consequences. You talk over me when I'm trying to stream. Makes it really hard to stream. And that light with the wrong color is really bad lighting. So, arguments. The last argument that I wrote was the standards of decency in what people believe is decent and not decent and moral and immoral can change over time. Also, the arguments to go against Florida. The government shouldn't execute when the defendant didn't take a life. The worst of the worst is subjective. I agree. I just feel like all right. So the worst of the worst is I hate the subjective nature of a lot of this. It's subjective, but I don't know anybody that doesn't see a child as an innocent person. Sometimes I look at my child and be like, you know exactly what you're doing. You're far from innocent, but the overall sentiment stays. She is an innocent. She looks at life as everybody is good-natured. Everybody is a good human. Like, she looks at life with a positivity that I don't have. And that's where I struggle. If I wasn't a parent, I might have a different view on this. I might have more of a Ghazni view. And I know Ghazni's a parent too. But I might have a more Ghazni snipe hunter view of this situation. But it's an internal struggle with what I would want to do if someone did this to my child and what I would want to physically do to them, which I'm pretty sure would send me to a one-way ticket to hell with a front row seat and probably a thank you note from the devil. However, that's a sidebar that we don't have time for. Constitutional protections cannot depend on how universally hated a defendant is. This one right here is what I feel like I preach all the time on this channel is we cannot take away someone's due process or someone's constitutional rights just because we think they're guilty and we don't like them. Because today it's them, tomorrow it's us. It's yeah. I see your point. I do. It's just subjective. Like what someone views as the worst of the worst is subjective. Yeah. After what we've been seeing, I'm definitely sus of humanity. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah. And then equal penalties for grape and unaliving could create a dangerous incentive. But the argument that I have against that, when someone brought that up to me, is it's not all grape allegations or incidents. It's only against people who haven't hit puberty yet. So the wanting the harshest penalties for things is an emotional position. It's inherently subjective. Giving the state the legal power to impose it is a constitutional decision with consequences far beyond one defendant. No, you're done. Down there. Right there. Yes. So, why do I think this might be the chosen case, or the chosen one, so to speak, or the test case, as I put in the thumbnail? 12, count them, 12 alleged smexy time battery counts. 12 allegations of repeated and long-term contact. Alleged digital or recorded evidence. Numerous accompanying felony counts, which we'll get into. A victim who is reportedly under the age of 12. Facts prosecutors may believe will generate minimal public sympathy for the accused. And I brought that up at the very beginning, why I thought that they were going to use this as a test case in my opening, before we actually got into it. Why I thought that Florida would be prepared to take this all the way to the Supreme Court, because you bring the most emotionally difficult case when you want protection on your side. Hey, Peculiar, how are you? We are all subject to the law, supposedly. Yeah, it's a very, and I feel like the law is so subjective, even when it comes to who's allowed to enforce it and how far they can go is so subjective. And I just, there's too much subjectiveness in the world that leaves things open for potential neglect and or abuse of power. All right. So before any of this, he's actually has to be tried. And we are going to look at his documents right now. Florida, where are you? So this is his arrest affidavit. And this is in Lake County, Florida. So trigger warning with this one. It is redacted. However, I'm just going to look over it one last time before I, and I will be dancing around, doing some ballerina work around some of these words, because as of now, I am still monetized. However, this is a touchy subject, and that might change. So we're just going to yeah, right? Like that's the freaking weirdest. I still can't get over that. There's just some things that you just don't understand, and like you will take to the grave not understanding. Like, I'm 40 right now. If I pass away at 100, I still will remember that phrase right there. And when I read that, how my head will spin. There will some things that if I live to be 100, I will never forget. And that is one of them. Oh, I was thinking it was not so gone from Earth to be aware and keep kids safe to public awareness. If it was opinion to be him, he seems to be mocking us all. I thought, wow, it's a you know, there's a, yeah, you know. All right, let's share this. And I did cover some of the documents in that case, that particular person that we're referring to. I feel like I can say a couple of the buzzwords on YouTube, but only so far apart. You know what I mean? I can't say so many things so close together. So one time I'll use the M word, and then I have to go back and use the unaliving word again. This one doesn't allow me to change the size. So, and this one doesn't allow me to zoom either. All right. So let's see. I don't like restream in these I like StreamYard where I could make my own window wherever I felt like it. All right, this is his arrest affidavit. This was March 22nd, 2026. 1 o'clock in the morning in Lake County, Florida. So we're going to get down to the Schubert Macarat. Date of birth, 8/23/1984. 41 years old. All right. So, lewd or lascivious. This is another word I'm not using on YouTube. Less than 12 years of age, in violation of Florida state statutes 800.045B. And this, by person in familial or custodial authority in violation of Florida state statute 794.0118B. Saturday, March 22nd, approximately 23:45, I responded to redacted in reference to a battery. It shall be noted that Lake County Communication Center received a call from the complainant advising that her coworker, redacted, advised her earlier tonight that blank juvenile was being not a word I can say on YouTube, but right there. While en route to the incident location, contact was made with redacted, who advised she was currently down the street from the residence and was waiting for my arrival. I asked if redacted was aware I was responding to the home, and she stated yes, and then began crying. Upon arrival, contact was made at the residence with redacted, who appeared to be a bit surprised, at which time I asked redacted to step out of the home so we could speak. Upon exiting the home, redacted was asked. There's a lot redacted for obvious reasons. There's a lot of names. Yeah, old enough to know better, 100%. Lascivious. My reading, Can you say mauling? I prefer to just highlight it and move on with my day because, yeah, this is a difficult topic. And I think this is the only document we are going to go over today, since we've kind of given a little bit of a background on the statute and why this could be bigger than the state of Florida. This could set precedent, a new precedent. What's up, baby? No. All right, violated works. That'll work. Upon exiting the home, redacted asked if redacted could be present, as it would make blank feel more comfortable. Once they were present, I asked blank to please state their full legal names and date of birth, which they did. Before I asked any questions, with little to no hesitation, Redacted stated approximately 21 hours. Blank finally advised that suspect Schubert Navarroza Macarat has been violating redacted since they were redacted with the last incident taking place on 1/29/2026. Oh, I love you.
Thank you.
Hey, Julian. Hey, Jen.
Hi,
Yeah, this is Texas-sized. It's and trigger warning for anybody who's just joining us. This involves the violation of a child under the age of 12. They stated around the age of redacted began touching inappropriately and at times would perform. I often asked how often this took place, around 3 times a week, while blank would be at work. Before I could ask anything further, blank advised redacted, who had 2 videos of being battered. I then asked redacted was able to record the battery, at which time they stated they knew it would happen when blank was not home. Therefore, they placed a camera in so-and-so's bedroom. In a short clip of the video I viewed on my agency-issued Axon 2 body-worn camera, redacted is seen laying on something back on the bed. I then saw blank place what I believe to be a condom on his manhood, although it was not in full view, removing his shirt as he began to violate redacted, the victim, who was crying. Upon viewing this video on the phone, I asked Detective Rivera to secure Schubert. Once secured, I read Schubert his rights, Miranda rights, from my Lake County Sheriff's Office issued Miranda warning card. Upon asking him if he understood his right and wished to speak with me, he initially agreed. He then asked if he was under arrest, and if so, why, at which time I asked him something along the lines of what he would say if I told you I had a video of you sexually battering redacted, which he would reply, I would say I made a mistake. Yeah. As I proceeded to ask Schubert another question, he then advised he did not wish to answer any further questions without an attorney present. Probably a good idea, at which time our conversation concluded. Yeah. Schubert was then placed into the back of my clearly marked Lake County Sheriff's Office patrol vehicle and transported to the Lake County Jail without incident. It should be noticed that both Schubert and redacted cellular devices were collected under property receipts and placed in Faraday bags to be submitted as evidence. Yeah. I can't, yeah. So that was that. Yeah, his mistake in recording it. That's...
Daddy test is done. Daddy test.
Yeah, Daddy, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Chat.
This is a very difficult case. That is why this is all we are going to talk about today. Because after reading that arrest affidavit, I can't do anymore.
Mommy, I want to test
Okay. I have to get going, do some stuff around the house. We will dig more into this. This is a Florida case. I do have access to all the documents.
Mommy.
If I don't see this going to trial, because of what they searched or what they are seeking, my prediction is that this will not go to trial. and it will not be an issue. However, if he decides that he wants to go to trial and they are seeking the death penalty, I see this going all the way up to the Supreme Court and becoming new precedent, because this is a new one. It's all fun and games. I say that as joking because we have dark humor around here, because that's how we make light of this kind of crap. When we talk about this kind of crap, or you're over on Mo's channel watching the Athena Strand case, you need dark humor to not go insane. Crimes against children, in my opinion, are the most horrible, the worst of the worst. However, I do understand that that is a subjective opinion. It is very difficult to get a case in front of the Supreme Court. I feel like, yeah, 2 days of nonstop debate tells me that this is a topic to think about. Even if this doesn't go to trial, and even if he has pled not guilty. However, that doesn't mean a plea deal might not happen. It's just something interesting to think about, and why this isn't on every front page of every newspaper in the country, and why more people aren't talking about this, I have no idea. It's all fun and games to talk about the Lord Chippy and the wood chipper and what we would do to people who commit crimes against children, until there is actually a case, and then we have to think about the constitutional rights afforded to citizens of this country, whether they are the most upstanding, well-loved citizen, or are the worst of the worst and we hate their guts. It's an interesting topic, and it's like the Tyler Robinson case that would end tomorrow with the state offering to drop the death penalty. Potentially. Sadly, it isn't news. I don't understand why. As soon as I was sent this case, this was when I was like, oh, I have to talk about this, because this needs to be, I only have 35 people watching, but at the same time, like, this needs to be front page. This needs to be on every headline in the country, because this is something that we all talk about wanting until it happens, and the possibility of it happening, and then there's constitutional questions. And it just makes you question the constitutionality of everything. And remember, we don't have to like people to realize that they have constitutional rights. It's hold on.
Stop.
I need to see something. So, and Ninja Puppy, thank you for the $25 Ko-fi. Happy birthday, little squid. Say thank you.
Thank you.
So, I did see it come across earlier, but she's had my phone, so I haven't been able to actually look at it. Agreed. Crimes against children are the worst. It's a continual crime for the victim. We have to make an example of the perv. Take the gloves off. I do think that, but at the same time, I am aware of how many times that I feel our justice system has screwed up things and punished the wrong people and not punished people who need to be punished. So I don't know how I feel about this until our justice system can actually make things right. And because our justice system can't get even the simplest of tasks right sometimes, I have a ethical or a moral standing with this. I agree with the premise. However, what about all the people who are in prison and are truly innocent people that got railroaded by the system. It does happen. Not as often as some people would like you to think it does, but it does happen. And but also that's what appeals are for. So here's my problem with myself. Like, I have an argument and then I instantly come up with an argument against my own argument. And I don't know where I stand on this because I see both sides. This is a very educational topic with all types of opinions. Loving it. Yeah, and I do love hearing from everybody's opinions because that's the thing about not having a clear-cut opinion is I can be persuaded. Our justice system can't decide whether or when to punish or when to retrain. And that's the other thing. Our justice system is a shit show in itself with what is rehabilitation and where does rehabilitation stop? Because that's a whole nother topic in itself, because people are a product of their environments, as we've talked about earlier today. So when you look at the rates of reoffenders, but why are they reoffending? Are they reoffending because they don't know anything else? Are they reoffending because they don't have resources on the outside to keep them from reoffending? Or are they reoffending because they're homeless and they knew that in prison they were top dog, so to speak, and they had they had meals and a roof over their head? And there's all these questions as to why people do things. And I think we look at the what they do and not the why they do it. And I'm not saying that we need to do like the soft on crime, send social workers out, because that shit doesn't work either. But when people get out of prison, we need to help them with more than just, here's your parole officer and a prayer, good luck, and send them out on their ass, because they don't have anything. Their family might be as involved with crime as they were, and now they go back to that family and they're likely to reoffend. I was talking to someone earlier and I kind of brought up the like an alcoholic. You get out of rehab, and I know there's a difference between a psychological substance abuse and committing a crime. However, if you look at alcoholics are the easiest topic because we all know one. We all know someone who's an alcoholic. When an alcoholic gets out of rehab, if they go back to their same situation, same friends, same housing situation, they're going to relapse. Not because they don't want to change, it's because their environment doesn't produce the ability to change. It's like someone who wants to lose weight hanging out with people who drink and go to McDonald's all the time. You're never going to lose weight if you are hanging around people who don't share your same values. And when people get out of prison, I feel like our prison system itself might not need reform, but what happens when people get out of prison needs reform. I feel like people need better support systems, and I don't know how to fix that. I don't know. I'm not saying I have the answers. I'm just saying I know what they need. I'm not saying I know where to go with it. But I did work with the homeless in college, and we did programs with them to figure out how we could help them. And one of them was resume writing, things like that, how to work with people and get them back on their feet. And I think that something needs to change. So my position is simple. Where do we draw the line? Today, capital punishment for offenders of child-related crimes. Tomorrow, any act of violence, no matter the outcome. And it is a slippery slope. And I agree with you on that. And that's where I'm like, my brain is you know, maybe. So it's a slippery slope, but there's a lot of rabbit holes that this topic could easily slide down. So don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating capital punishment per se. I think the current prison system will deal with them as needed. We just should be sure of the crime. And here's the thing. I've listened to people like Jumpsuit Pablo. He has about, I want to say, a couple 100,000 or 500,000 subscribers by now. He did 10 years-ish in prison for armed robbery. Don't quote me on that. He's very open about it. I just can't remember what it is. But I love his channel. But he says that things like Gen Pop justice aren't exactly what we would like to think they are. And because he's been there and I haven't, I'm willing to trust his opinion. So on that note, I'm going to see where I can send y'all because it is almost 4 o'clock and your girl has to go to work in an hour. So we need to figure out what we're doing for dinner. And we also need to figure out where we can send our friends on the internet. Where should we send them? Angel Bug.
Yes.
Where should we send them?
To Daddy.
Oh, we're not gonna show them the. Ooh, let's see. Oh, that's not for another week.
Mommy,
It's not for another week, but
Mommy,
just if you don't subscribe to
Aussie
Aussie Overlord, he has a new family member, a puppy. On July 25th, he'll be revealing the puppy, I guess. I don't see anybody. Stop, please. Stop, please. I already asked you to stop. I'm going to put you down. Whoop. I guess Megan's live doing a bankruptcy hearing. So the Owens bankruptcy hearing. So go tell Megan I sent y'all. Have a great